The shocking truth about life in Sodom and Gomorrah, a dark revelation you won't forget. In the flickering shadows of the ancient past, two cities lay hidden beneath the weight of their own unthinkable sins. Sodom and Gomorrah, names whispered with a mix of fear and intrigue, held secrets darker than the night sky above. Their streets, once alive with laughter and trade, were now paved with whispers of the grotesque and the unbelievable. What unspeakable acts had turned these vibrant places into graveyards of morality? The very air felt charged with an electric tension, the scent of sulfur and fire lingering as a promise of impending doom. Every corner of Sodom was alive with rumors. Women in the marketplace traded not just fruits and textiles but barbed gossip that cut deeper than a knife. There were tales of an unseen presence, something watching from the shadows, a ghostly figure that prowled the dark alleys, striking cold fear into the hearts of the bravest men. "Have you heard?" A voice would quiver, eyes darting nervously. "People are disappearing." Was it sin claiming its due, or was there something more, a dark force, tangible and real? Then there were the bizarre happenings. Flames bursting from the earth like angry spirits were common in Gomorrah. People claimed the ground shook, that if you stood still long enough, you could hear the screams of the damned echoing from below. On stormy nights, thunder would rhythmically pound like a heartbeat, and crying could be heard, collapsing in waves like the tide, rising and falling, leaving an eerie stillness in its wake. Every flicker of lightning illuminated the petrified expressions of the townsfolk, their fears capturing the essence of a nightmare come to life. A shiver slid down your spine as you walked through the streets littered with ominous symbols etched in stone, telling stories of shame, desire, and betrayal. Each pulse quickened your heart, as if the city itself was alive, breathing heavily with regret. Against the backdrop of everyday life, a dark current flowed beneath the surface, ready to erupt. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As night fell, hushed whispers turned into frantic screams. Shapes danced in the shadows, flickering in and out of existence, embodiments of pure dread. What fate awaited those who dared to indulge in the excesses of these cities? Someone had to pay the piper, and as a cold wind swept through the streets, it felt like the beginning of the end. What dark twist of fate would transform these cities forever? The conclusion lingered, heavy and dark, pulling you deeper into the unknown. A chilling breeze swept through the empty streets, carrying with it the pregnant silence that followed the night's turmoil. Shadows clung to the walls, whispering secrets that only the dead could hear. But in the heart of Sodom, the silence shattered with a sudden, bone-chilling scream. It was the sound of despair, raw and unfiltered. In the dim light of a flickering lamp, a figure emerged. Her name was Miriam, and she was one of the last to notice the changes around her. Shattered pottery lay scattered at her feet, remnants of once vibrant lives. As she stepped over the broken pieces, she felt a pulse beneath her like the city's very heartbeat, racing, frantic. "Please, no." Another scream echoed in the distance, and her heart raced. What horrors lurked in the shadows tonight? Fear gripped her, and she tightened her shawl around her shoulders, its tattered fabric failing to protect her from the consuming dread. Another figure darted past her, an acquaintance, Josiah, his face pale and wild. "Miriam!" he gasped, breathless. "You must come. They've taken her." Her breath caught in her throat. "Who? Taken who?" "Shira, my sister." His eyes were wide with terror. "I watched them take her shadows. They weren't even human. I swear it." Miriam felt a wave of nausea as she pressed on. The streets were a labyrinth of fear now, dark alleys twisting like the fears in her mind. As she followed Josiah, she noticed the city had changed overnight, a hellscape where curses seemed to linger in the air, wrapping around her throat like a noose. Thunder rumbled ominously above, and light flickered as if the heavens themselves were protesting against what had transpired below. They reached the edge of a square, a gathering place that now felt like the arena of madness. Townsfolk huddled in groups, their faces pale and chalky, casting furtive glances toward an ominous stone altar that had appeared seemingly overnight, a sinister monument reflecting the city's depravity. Was it a meeting point for those who danced with the darkness? Whispers filled the air, voices rising and crashing like waves. Someone shouted, "They come from the depths. The dark judges. They demand penance for our sins." Was it not enough? A woman cried. Have we not suffered enough? Miriam shivered at the raw panic in their voices. What do they want? She whispered to Josiah, who looked as if he might crumble. They want blood, he whispered back, eyes darting nervously. They demand a sacrifice. Panic began to rise, engulfing them both. Shadows darted around the perimeter, swirling like living smoke, watching, waiting. Suddenly, the screams turned into a chant, syncopated and chaotic. Offer her. Offer her. Miriam's heart pounded. Were they calling for Shira? A gnawing sensation gripped her insides, twisting tighter with each passing moment. As she tried to process this insanity, a flicker of hope sparked within her. Perhaps there was still time for rescue. She clutched Josiah's arm. We must find Shira. We can't let them have her. But before anyone could move, a loud crack of thunder echoed overhead. An explosion of blinding light erupted from the altar, illuminating the square in a ghostly glow. The townsfolk gasped, falling silent, frozen in terror. An otherworldly figure rose from the altar, ethereal and terrible, its form shrouded in darkness. Bring forth the one who dares defy the choices of Sodom and Gomorrah. The figure boomed, its voice an echo from the abyss. What could an ordinary woman and a frightened man do against such a force? In that moment, the choice hung palpably in the air. Where would their courage lead them? What lay ahead in their pursuit to save Shira from the grasp of dark judgments? As the figure's gaze fell on Miriam, she felt her breath stop. What would they demand of her, and could she summon the strength to fight against fate itself? The shadows writhed in anticipation, leaving her with a single question echoing in her mind as she stood frozen in horror. Would she become the next sacrifice? The moment stretched, time bending in unspeakable ways, as the figure's dark gaze bore into Miriam's soul. She could almost feel it pulling at her, unraveling her very essence. Shadows danced in the flickering light, grotesque forms shifting and swirling, each heartbeat a reminder that danger was near. Do you see them? Josiah whispered, still locked in fear. Miriam barely nodded, her throat dry as dust. All around them, faces twisted in desperate prayer and cursing silence. Would anyone dare defy the darkness? Silence. The figure commanded again, voice thunderous and resonant. It reached into the depths of her mind, amplifying both doubt and fear. You stand at the gates of reckoning. Who among you shall speak for the damned? Who shall offer penance? Panic surged within her. They couldn't be asking for a volunteer. A murmur rippled through the crowd, a mix of fear and resignation. Miriam. Josiah broke through the dread. We can't let them take Shira. We must. Before he could finish, the figure's attention snapped back to him. You dare speak her name? It laughed, a sound colder than any winter chill. What is she to you? She's family. He shouted, voice trembling yet defiant. We can't sacrifice her. Family? The figure sneered, its form shifting as if morphing with the shadows around it. What good are blood ties when faced with the infamy of this city? This fate demands a choice. Miriam felt the air grow heavy, every breath a painful reminder. The crowd shifted nervously, casting doubtful glances at one another. Even the strongest among them now cowered under the weight of dread. What were they capable of in the face of terror? A woman stepped forward, eyes glassy, voice barely a whisper, "Please, if you take one of us, let it be me. Spare the girl. I've lived my sins, I regret them all." Her tone was desperate, but the crowd recoiled, their horror sharpening in the light of the altar. "No!" Josiah shouted, grabbing Miriam's arm hard enough to hurt. "We can't let them choose. We need to fight." Fight? Miriam's heart raced viciously. What did that even mean in the face of such monstrous power? "I don't know how," she breathed, panic edging her voice. Yet, something inside her ignited a flicker of anger bubbling up like a volcano ready to erupt. "But we mustn't give in. We cannot let fear dictate our lives." "Then take a stand," Josiah shouted, fueled by her words. "We will find Shira, and we will face whatever they throw at us." As if reacting to their defiance, the figure roared, shaking the square. "You think you can defy fate? You think love can shield you from the darkness? Bring forth the sacrifice." Shadows twisted and swarmed, growing more ominous, coiling tighter around the townspeople. Miriam could feel an unnatural chill settle in her bones. She turned to the gathered crowd, desperate to rally them. "We have the power to change this. We can fight back. Who will stand with us?" A voice in the back broke through the chaos, trembling but clear. "I will." A man stepped forward. Others followed, their faces set with a mix of determination and fear. Maybe, just maybe, they could seize a flicker of hope, but the figure's laughter echoed through the square, a sound like a shattering mirror. "You will regret this choice." Suddenly, a blinding light exploded from the altar, and the shadows lunged forward, swirling toward the townsfolk like a storm. Gasps filled the air as chaos erupted, bodies colliding, screams ringing in a desperate effort to escape. Miriam and Josiah pushed their way through the panic, adrenaline coursing through their veins. "We need to find Shira." Josiah yelled over the din, but every path seemed blocked by the thrashing madness around them. As they stumbled through, Miriam felt an unnatural pull drawing her towards the altar once more. The light shimmered, revealing something glistening beneath the ruins. What could it be? An artifact? A weapon? "Do you feel that?" she shouted to Josiah, who seemed lost in a haze of uncertainty. Before she could say more, the darkness constricted around them like a vice. A single thought raced through her mind: could this be the key to turning the tides? And just like that, the ground beneath them split open, revealing a hidden passage, an escape, or perhaps an even darker fate. "Now, what?" she whispered, staring into the abyss as the winds howled in a final warning. What lay beyond the shadows that devoured Sodom? Would this passage lead to salvation or damnation? Fear gripped Miriam as she peered into the yawning chasm, its depths cloaked in darkness. The light from the altar pulsed like a heartbeat, illuminating the craggy walls of the passage with ghostly streaks. Josiah's grip on her arm tightened, his breaths coming in quick, panicked bursts. "Miriam, we can't just, we have to. Shira needs us," she interjected, her voice sharper than she intended. The shadows outside continued to writhe with an unholy energy, as if the very fabric of reality was tearing apart. With a swift motion, she stepped forward, heart thumping in her chest, drawing Josiah along. The pull she felt was magnetic, a whispering promise that there might be something ahead, something that could save them or doom them. The moment they entered the passage, the world above roared, filled with the cacophony of fear. Screams echoed, but they seemed to fade as the stone walls enclosed around them, muffling the chaos. For a heartbeat, Miriam felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps the darkness could not reach them here. As they moved deeper into the darkness, the air grew thick and stale. Each step sent waves of dread washing over her, as if invisible eyes were watching. The walls glistened with moisture, and the faint sound of dripping water filled the silent void, amplifying her fears. "Do you hear that?" Josiah whispered, his voice barely above a breath. All of Miriam's senses screamed for her to turn back, but curiosity clawed at her. "Shira is out there, we can't give up." Suddenly, a flicker of light caught her attention. It erupted from a stone pedestal set against the wall, a twisted relic glowing softly. Fear battled with intrigue inside her, compelling her closer. "What is it?" Josiah asked, his eyes fixed on the object. "Should we touch it?" Miriam reached out, her fingers grazing the cool surface. Instantly, a surge of energy pulsed through her, igniting every nerve in her body. Images exploded in her mind, fragments of the past, echoes of lives stolen by the figure's darkness. She saw Shira, helpless, trapped in the shadows, calling out for her. "Miriam!" Josiah's voice shattered her trance. "Get away from it." His panic rekindled her own. But she couldn't pull away, the artifact thrummed beneath her fingertips, like a connection to something greater. Her heart raced as the light intensified, casting eerie shadows against the passage walls. "What if it helps us fight?" She thought out loud, trembling as adrenaline surged through her veins. "What if this is the key? Or it could be a trap." Josiah warned, glancing over his shoulder, eyes wide with fear. One final glance into the glowing relic told her everything. It was not just a weapon, it was a symbol of hope. If they could harness its power. "Help me!" she shouted, and together they pushed against the pedestal, feeling papers of ancient texts slipping free, the whispers of past sacrifices brushing against them. Just then, a tremor shook the walls, adrenaline coursing through her. The figure's deep laughter echoed down the passage, reverberating through her bones. "You think you can wield forgotten power? You'll only deepen the darkness." "No!" Miriam cried back, shaking off the terror that threatened to engulf her. "We will not submit." But as she stood her ground, the shadows stirred violently, stretching and reaching, pulling at the very air around them, and suddenly the relic exploded with power, showering the passage in blinding light. "Run!" Josiah shouted, darting back, but as they turned to escape, the ground lurched, fracturing beneath their feet. In the disarray, shadows clawed at Miriam, and for a brief, agonizing moment, she felt herself slipping away into the void. But she wouldn't let go. Focus surged within her, and she summoned every ounce of strength she had left. The passage around them morphed, twisting in a chaotic dance, and for a heartbeat, everything was silent. Breathless, they stood at the edge of uncertainty, caught between light and shadow. Then, just as suddenly, the world exploded into fragments. The relic's glow enveloped them, merging the borders of what was and what could be. The shadows paused, as if hesitating, and Miriam had one heartbeat to decide, were they ready to face the darkness that awaited them beyond this moment? Would they emerge from this nightmare as heroes, or would they be forever consumed by the void? As her breath caught in her throat, choices spiraled around her like leaves in the wind. The answer lay ahead, but they could not grasp it until they dared to take one final step into the unknown. What awaited them in that blinding light? And was it truly the salvation they sought, or merely another layer of deception? The light surged around them, vibrant and fierce, wrapping Miriam and Josiah in a cocoon of luminescence. They felt weightless, as if gravity itself had loosened its grip. Yet the moment was tinged with dread. Would they be pulled apart by the forces lurking in the shadows? Would the light expose them or protect them? "Hold on!" Miriam shouted as the ground trembled underneath. She grabbed Josiah's hand tightly, their fingers clasping with urgency, as if that simple act could anchor them against the chaos swirling just beyond their vision. The blinding light flickered, morphing into a labyrinth of colors. Each hue seemed to echo distant voices, a chorus of anguish and hope intertwined, filling the air with unspoken sorrows and long-forgotten dreams. "Listen!" Josiah urged, his face pale as he strained to hear. "It's singing, but is it calling us? Or warning us?" Miriam countered, doubt creeping in like a creeping shadow, a reminder of the darkness that waited. Suddenly, the light split, two paths unfurling like ribbons before them. One flickered with a warm, golden hue while the other shone a cold, blue light that sent shivers down her spine. "What if we choose wrong?" she whispered, her heart racing as she glanced between the two, each path like an ominous whisper testing her resolve. "There's no time," Josiah urged, pulling her toward the golden path. We can't lose momentum. We need to save Shira. Wait. A cold prickle ran over her skin as a familiar voice broke through, slicing through the brightness. It was Shira's voice, distant yet desperately clear. Help me. I'm here, trapped. You have to. Miriam twisted, eyes scanning the dazzling chaos. Where? What do we do? How do we reach you? The echoes twisted around her, disorienting her, then, as if answering her plea, the ground beneath the golden path pulsed and shimmered, drawing them forward. Josiah tightened his hold. Miriam, we have to trust the light. It's showing us the way. Trust the light. She murmured, her own uncertainty gnawing at her. The memories of the dark figure's laughter replayed in her mind, a deceitful melody promising despair over courage. That uncertainty was sliced through as a shadow emerged from the cold light, stretching its unnatural form, looming and ominous. It edged closer, dark tendrils reaching toward them, whispering fears that twisted deep in her mind. You're too late. The light is a lie. There's no salvation here, no. This time, I want to listen. Miriam bit back, instinctively stepping forward, her voice unfaltering as she faced the shadow head-on. I have faced you before, and you will not claim me again. The shadow recoiled, but then twisted in on itself, forming a monstrous visage that looked strikingly familiar. Her own face, contorted with fear, with shadows clinging like the fog. You cannot escape your own darkness, Miriam. You'll always be trapped. Not this time. Miriam screamed, the force of her will radiating into the light. The golden path brightened, pushing back the encroaching shadows. She felt Josiah's steady presence at her side. Come on. He urged, pulling her forward. They bolted down the shimmering path, the sound of Shira's cries driving them onward, the shadows simmering in their wake. The corridor turned and twisted, like a roller coaster plunging into the depths, until they stumbled onto a bridge suspended over an abyss of darkness. They hesitated, the lights flickering ominously. We're getting close. Josiah called, determination renewing his energy. Shira. Miriam shouted, desperation spiraling inside her. Can you hear me? A faint echo returned, fragile yet strong, cutting through the murky silence. I'm here. Hurry. But the bridge quaked beneath their feet, the shadows swirling beneath, clawing at their heels. Don't look back. Josiah shouted, his voice sharp enough to slice through the panic. They sprinted forward, feet pounding, heartbeats sinking to an urgent rhythm. Suddenly, a brutal gust of wind roared, the fabric of the light unraveling around them, and a bone-chilling chill shot through the air. Keep going. Miriam shouted, fear blurring her vision as she propelled forward, inching closer to the cries of Shira. But then, right in the heart of the light, a new figure appeared. A hooded silhouette, gripping a glowing dagger, stood poised at the exit of the bridge. The very air around it crackled with an energy that felt both divine and malignant. Not so fast, it hissed, and the bridge shuddered again. Do you think you could save her without facing the truth of your own heart? Miriam and Josiah froze, the turn of events dragging them deeper into dread. What truth awaited them? Was it worth saving Shira if it meant confronting the very darkness that haunted them? As the shadows moved closer, threatening to engulf them, the answer hung precariously in the balance. Would they face the figure and uncover their painful truths, or would they succumb to the darkness and lose everything they held dear? Time stood still as they stared down the looming figure, left with a choice that could define their fates. The cloaked figure loomed larger against the gleaming backdrop, its presence suffocating an embodiment of their buried fears. Miriam's heart thundered in her chest, sweat trickled down her brow. This was not just a choice between paths, it was a confrontation with everything she wished to hide. What do you want from us? Josiah shouted, his voice trembling slightly. Fear laced his words, yet a spark of defiance flickered in his eyes. Let us pass. We have to save Shira. The figure tilted its head, the hood obscuring its face, but the ambience shifted, a cold, oppressive air descending. You cannot rescue anyone unless you first rescue yourselves. The light cannot shield you forever, it intoned, the voice smooth as silk yet edged with malice. Enough games. Miriam felt courage blooming within her. You're nothing but a shadow. We want to be held back. She stepped closer to the figure, the warmth of the golden path grounding her resolve. What truth do you demand? A low, sinister chuckle erupted from beneath the hood, sending shivers racing down her spine. A truth you both know but refuse to accept. Suddenly, the dagger glowed brighter, illuminating the abyss below them. The shadows writhed hungrily, gnashing at their heels. With a flick of its wrist, the figure waved, and the cacophony of echoes transformed, morphing into familiar sounds, voices from their past, regrets cascading like a torrential downpour. Remember the promises you broke? The lies you told to make yourselves feel better? Face it. The voices roared, shaking the very foundation of their reality. Miriam squeezed Josiah's hand tighter. Shut it out. Don't listen. She urged, but her heart wavered, the memories piercing her like 1,000 icy daggers. She recalled every moment of weakness, every betrayal of trust. The laughter of friends shattered, each piercing note reminding her of pain and guilt. Josiah, losing resolve, stumbled backward. What if it's true? What if we can't face what we've done? He glanced at the shadows, panic overtaking him. What if we're not strong enough? No. She cried, shaking him lightly. We can't afford to crumble. Not now, not here. She turned to the figure. We will not stand down. Show us what you have to reveal. The figure lifted the dagger, and light crackled along its blade, forming vivid images. Past mistakes materialized before them. They saw themselves, Miriam, breaking promises, Josiah, holding on to guilt like a chain. Each image struck like lightning, an unrelenting storm of memories engulfing them, each reflection stinging deeper. No. We're more than our mistakes. Josiah shouted, his voice rising in defiance. We've grown. We've fought. It doesn't define us. The figure paused, darkness swirling around them, almost contemplative. Perhaps, but can you forgive yourselves? Can you face the truth of who you've become? Miriam took a deep breath, determination igniting within her. We must face the darkness. Together. Only then can we save Shira. As she spoke, the golden path pulsed, and the light flared. Shadows hesitated, swirling in uncertainty. Do you really believe that? The hooded figure growled, eyes blazing from beneath the cloak. Yes, we believe. Josiah echoed, a newfound strength rising in his voice, but the figure stepped forward, dissolving the distance. Then prove it. It raised the dagger, and a burst of light surged from it, crashing down like a wave. The air thickened, crackling with energy that seemed intent on tearing them apart. In that moment, Miriam felt the weight of every choice crashing down. The salvation laid before them, but at what cost? Would they rise above their darkness or be consumed by it? Now! She yelled, her voice fierce above the chaos. We fight! And as they braced against the tempest, the shadows clawing closer, a pulse of defiance surged within them. Would their unified strength be enough to conquer the darkness, or would they succumb to the very truth that sought to divide them? The light from the dagger erupted with blinding intensity, enveloping Miriam and Josiah in a cocoon of luminescence. The shadows hissed and recoiled, their darkness momentarily quelled, but not defeated. Miriam could feel the warmth enveloping her, almost protective yet fierce with energy. This is it! She shouted, her voice straining against the roar of the unseen wind whipped up by the clash of light and dark. Beside her, Josiah crouched low, fists clenched. We can't let them win. Not now. Fear ignited his eyes, and she could see the mounting desperation battling for control within him. They had come too far to falter now. As the light multiplied, a figure darted past, barely visible through the chaos. Shira! A voice echoed, thin but clear, distant and yet close enough to feel. It reverberated through her soul like a warning. Somewhere, their friend was in need, but the figure cloaked in malice loomed, ready to strike. The hooded figure raised the dagger again, its glow intensifying, tilting the balance of power. You think you can fight the truth? The voice twisted around them, a haunting melody filled with mocking laughter. It will tear you apart. Miriam felt a surge of determination. We are more than our mistakes. She stepped forward, shouting against the chaos. We define our destinies. The light pulsated with her words, fighting against the darkness that was now trembling, shifting in hesitation. But the figure leaped closer, and even as shadows pounded against her, she could see it clearly now, the face hidden beneath the hood twisted into a grimace of fury. Miriam's blood ran cold as she recognized the sharp features. No. It can't be. Isn't it fascinating? The figure sneered, each word laced with venom. You look upon your own reflection and see the monster you've tried to hide. It tilted the dagger, transforming the light into a blade that seemed heavy with past decisions. You created this darkness within you. Stop. Josiah screamed, clutching his head as if he could block out the truth. I won't listen to you. No matter how hard you try, it's already there. The figure pressed closer, shadows reaching out and latching tightly around them, pulling them into a suffocating embrace. It won't let you go. Miriam felt the weight of words and memories pushing against her will. Refrigerating guilt sliced through her resolve, but deep within her, she found a flicker of defiance. We control our own story. She yelled, anchoring herself in the golden light, reaching out to Josiah. We're not alone. With a breath, they grasped each other's hands, grounding themselves. In that moment of connection, their shared strength became a burgeoning force, brightening the edges of the darkness about to consume them. Then prove it. The figure spat, preparing to strike with a force that could shatter their resolve. The world around them seemed to hold its breath, the pendulum of fate swinging dangerously. Thunder struck overhead, lightning split the skies, filling their hearts with electric urgency. For a heartbeat, they were suspended between worlds, one of light and hope, the other of black despair. Together. Miriam shouted, her resolve echoing through the void. We will find a way. With that, the shadows surged, a furious torrent. But Miriam and Josiah, locked in fierce determination, stood their ground as the light flickered and pulsed, pushing back against the encroaching abyss. Would their bond be enough to break the chains of the past? Or would the truth they feared become the very weapon that destroyed them? The air crackled again as the figure loomed closer, a sinister smile spreading. You think you have a choice? Just wait. And in that moment of uncertainty, the world seemed to tilt, teetering on the edge of revelation. The shadows writhed, snapping and curling like serpents eager to strike. Miriam and Josiah braced themselves, hearts pounding in unison, their grip tight on each other's hands. The air thickened with tension, swirling around them as the figure loomed, dagger raised like a dark crown. Your strength is fleeting, the hooded figure hissed, voice dripping with malice. I'll show you the monsters you've created, the lives you've shattered. The dagger glinted ominously, its light revealing flashes of the past faces they knew, echoes of laughter, dreams transformed into nightmares. Stop! Josiah shouted, pulling Miriam closer, shielding her as best he could. We are not defined by our past. We will not give in. Miriam felt his determination seep into her, a lifeline in the storm of chaos. Look at me, Josiah, she urged, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. We can rewrite this. They can't control our story unless we let them. Fingertips tinged with light, they pressed forward, the rising warmth pushing against the shadows. The darkness shrieked, recoiling from their resolve, but the figure laughed, a cruel, mocking sound that sent chills rippling through their bones. You think you can erase what has done? Regret is a shadow that never disappears. Not if we confront it. Miriam clenched her jaw, spirit ignited. She closed her eyes, recalling every whispered secret, every cry for help she had ignored. We were wrong. But we can endure. We can face it together. In that instant, a flicker sparked between them, a shimmering thread connecting their hearts. The light swelled, swirling around, pushing the shadows back but failing to break free. It was a battle of wills, of destinies. Watch. The figure snapped, raising the dagger further above her head. Witness your own shame. Suddenly, she slashed down, and the very fabric of reality seemed to rip apart. Miriam gasped as visions swirled before her, vivid nightmares cascading like a waterfall, faces of those she had loved and lost, tragedies tied to her every misstep. Each scene bore down on her, threatening to drown her in regret. The memories clawed at the edges of her mind, each one a brick in the prison of despair. No. She screamed, drawing on Josiah's strength. We will not let this consume us. With a mighty rush of collective energy, they fought back against the rising tide, pouring their essence into the light. It pulsed brighter, fiercely pushing the shadows back inch by inch, but doubt tightened its grip around Miriam's heart, a relentless whisper echoing, "What if you fail? What if you're too late?" Josiah's eyes flashed with a fierce ember of hope. Believe, Miriam. We are stronger together. In that moment, Miriam didn't just hear his words, she felt them resonate within her, vibrating through to her core. Together. She roared, frustration and hope intertwining, bursting forth in flames of light. The darkness screeched, twisted an unbearable cacophony in contrast to their unity. Light exploded forth, a blinding flare that streaked across the landscape, illuminating the night as it engulfed the shadows. And just like that, silence. Miriam opened her eyes, breath catching in her throat. The figure had vanished, the dagger clattered to the ground, extinguished. But even as victory ignited a spark of hope, a dreadful feeling crept in. The air tasted different, sharp, charged with a sense of impending revelation. Somewhere, a whisper lingered, echoing through her mind. You may have triumphed today, but truth is a relentless hunter, and it won't be long before it finds you again. As light flickered around them, Miriam turned to Josiah, dread rising like bile in her throat. What if this was just the beginning? The darkness shifted and twisted in the periphery, and they both sensed it, something deeper, something unsaid still lurking, yearning to break free. They had fought a battle, but the war was far from over. Miriam stood there, trembling, the echoes of their confrontation still rattling in her bones. She felt the weight of their victory slip away, replaced by the dread of what lay ahead. Josiah's hand was warm in hers, a tangible reminder that she wasn't alone. Yet the uncertainty hung thick in the air. What do you think she meant? Josiah asked, his voice a low murmur. Miriam shook her head, the memory of the figure's laughter crawling under her skin. I don't know, but it felt like a promise of something worse to come. The night was heavy, the once comforting glow of the light they had unleashed dimming into a muted haze. Shadows still flickered along the edges of their vision, sly and watchful, but there was no sign of the hooded figure. Maybe we should leave, Josiah suggested, glancing around, his instincts on high alert. If what she said is true, we might not be safe here. Her heart raced at the thought. The road ahead unfolded like a dark tunnel, uncertain and fraught with dangers. Where would we go? She whispered, feeling the chill of isolation wrap around her like a shroud. Anywhere but here, he replied, taking a hesitant step forward. Together, we can face whatever comes next. Miriam nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at her. She sensed a lingering presence, as if the very ground beneath them whispered secrets of those who once walked it. Each step felt like they were walking through a graveyard of memories, shadows shimmering just out of reach. As they moved deeper into the night, an eerie stillness settled around them. The world felt suspended, as if reality was holding its breath. Miriam's feet felt heavy, the weight of their past pushing against her every move. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught her eye. She stopped, pulling Josiah back. Did you see that? She whispered, heart pounding in her chest. He squinted into the darkness. See what? Something there. She pointed, breath quickening, the shadows shifted, morphing into shapes that twisted and danced on the edge of her vision. A figure materialized, cloaked in darkness, and for a moment, Miriam felt her throat tighten, a visceral scream clawing its way up. "Who are you?" she shouted, her voice thin and quivering. The figure stepped closer, revealing a familiar face haunted and twisted. It was someone they had thought lost, someone drawn into the fray of their shared nightmares. "Why did you leave us?" the figure croaked, eyes wide with agony, as if trapped in an eternal scream. "Miriam, Josiah," the voice cracked like thunder, echoing through the air around them. "You think you've escaped? The shadows aren't the only monsters. They feed off your choices, and they're coming for you." Miriam stumbled back, heart racing with the realization that the past they thought they had fought was still clinging to them. The respite they had gained evaporated, replaced by the weight of grim truths once again dancing in front of them. "What does she mean?" Josiah shouted, anger igniting in his tone. "What do you want from us?" "Redemption comes at a price," the figure rasped, retreating into the shadows, leaving behind a chilling laughter that echoed through the night air. "Stay close," Josiah urged, his eyes darting anxiously. "We can't let it get to us." "Not now." Miriam felt a knot of dread coil tighter in her chest. They had pulled against despair once, but how many times could they rise? What other truths lurked in the depths of their past, ready to strike? With every ounce of determination she could muster, Miriam turned to Josiah, her voice steely with resolve. "We have to find out what this means. We need to confront our past, or it will consume us." Feeling the surge of urgency, they pressed on, but the shadows grew thicker, whispering secrets that clung to the air like fog. The night was far from over, and danger lurked just beyond their vision. "Whatever happens next," she breathed, gripping Josiah's hand tighter, "we have to face it together." But in the back of her mind, doubt gnawed at her resolve. What new horrors awaited them? And was there any chance of true redemption, or were they destined to face the shadows forever? As a new rustle echoed, Miriam's stomach twisted. Somewhere, just out of sight, she could feel the relentless hunter lurking, waiting for its moment to strike. The city of Sodom felt different now, its shadows heavier, darker, as if they themselves were alive, vibrating with unresolved fears. Every step Miriam took alongside Josiah echoed the weight of their shared past, each remembered regret an anchor keeping them tied to whatever horror awaited. But dawn was creeping on the horizon, hinting at a time of reckoning. The sky shifted, a palette of bruised purple giving way to pale orange, a faint promise of hope creeping through the depths of despair. Together, they moved cautiously through the deserted streets. "We can do this," Josiah said, pulling Miriam from the tendrils of doubt wrapping tightly around her mind. "We have each other." His words, though simple, wrapped around her heart, lending her strength. They reached the town square where the menacing altar once loomed, now just a collection of stones tangled with shards of yesterday's terror. "This is where it all began," Miriam murmured, the air thick with shadowy memories. "Or where we can start anew," Josiah replied, his tone steady, but his eyes were shadowed with uncertainty. "Let us face it, whatever it is we haven't confronted." Miriam nodded. "Together." She stepped forward, feeling the ground pulse beneath her feet, as if the city was breathing. It responded, an invitation and a challenge that beckoned her deeper into the unknown. She closed her eyes, allowing the echoes of the past to flood her senses, voices wailing, laughter turning to screams, each moment a link in the fragile chain of their existence. "I'm not afraid," she whispered, forcing the words through the lump in her throat. "I'm here to reclaim what was taken from me." With those words, the shadows writhed and flickered, and the ground rumbled. The wind shifted again, sharper, biting, but she held fast to Josiah. The world around them began to swirl, a tempest of darkness, but it was time to confront their ghosts, time to face the truths that clawed at their hearts. "Show us!" Josiah shouted into the chaos, his voice strangling the darkness around them, raw and fierce. "We're here to reclaim our destiny." The air twitched, the shadows recoiling, as if both afraid and curious, light erupted from the earth beneath their feet, blindingly bright, pushing against the darkness that thrived on their fear. They stood firm, fists clenched and hearts thundering, as images from their past erupted into the space around them. Miriam's regrets twisted around her betrayals, her fears, the moments she had let others down. She felt them clenching around her neck like a vice, pressing down relentlessly. But with each breath, she grappled with them, uncurling the tightness in her throat, refusing to let the darkness consume her, and then, from the midst of the chaos, Shira's face emerged, brighter than any shadow, her expression steady. "You've come for me," she said, the paradox of fear and hope etched within her eyes. "Shira!" Miriam cried, stepping forward. "We're here to save you. We won't let the darkness take you." As if energized by their unified purpose, the light surged forward, washing away the encroaching shadows that had once threatened to tighten like nooses around their throats. Josiah squeezed Miriam's hand, their shared courage radiating through the square. Together, they shouted in unison, voices weaving a fabric of resilience, interlacing their hope and determination into a tapestry strong enough to withstand the onslaught of the darkness. "And if you dare face me," the shadow from before spoke again, more hiss than sound, "you will only awaken the monster within." The very air in the square vibrated with its malice, but they stood firm, hearts ablaze. "No. This time, we will embrace our truths," Miriam declared, her voice resolute, reverberating as if echoing through the annals of time. Josiah nodded as if they had struck alongside with his spirit. Together, they surged forward, the light illuminating their path. "Your shadows have no hold on us," Josiah shouted. The light burst forth, swallowing the darkness whole, the confrontation bathing the square in clarity, as if a new day were dawning. Shadows hissed and shrieked, tangible fear unraveling as the air shifted, cleansing, brightening, chasing away the remnants of despair. As the remnants of darkness faded into oblivion, the first rays of dawn broke through the haze, spilling warmth across the desolate square. Here, amid the ruins of Sodom, hope flickered alive again. They turned towards Shira, who stood before them, eyes wide with wonder. "You did it," she whispered, tears glistening like diamonds on her cheeks. Miriam stepped forward, wrapping Shira in a fierce embrace, her heart finally lightening. "You're safe now. We fought for you. We fought for all of us." Josiah joined, and the three of them stood together against the dawning light, a united front against the shadows of the past. The remnants of their fears and regrets tangled but disintegrated like smoke, no longer able to take root in their hearts. "We're no longer prisoners of our past," Miriam whispered, as she stared into the rising sun painting the morning sky in hues of orange and purple, every color a promise of a new beginning. "We've found freedom." In that moment, they felt that the city itself breathed out a sigh of relief, the burden lifted. The echoes of those lost resonated in the newfound clarity, the pulse of Sodom and Gomorrah transformed, and as they turned to face the horizon, they knew the fight was far from over. Each day would be a journey, a continuous battle for light over darkness. But together, they stood with renewed strength, ready to face whatever lay ahead. United as one, they stepped toward tomorrow, a tomorrow bright with hope and unshakable bonds. And so, with courage sewn into every fiber of their beings, they walked forward together into the dawn, embracing a life lived fully, free of shadows. That it is just the beginning. Now, before we wrap this up, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. Don't miss any of the exclusive stories coming up next. Trust me, you want to be part of this journey. Smash that like button now. It feeds the algorithm and helps keep this amazing community growing, and flood the comments section with your thoughts. I want every single reaction and theory about this conclusion. Finally, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible ending. Don't wait even one more second to spread the word. This is the moment to show your support. Let's change lives together.